very much, Chair. The people of Tallaght are up in arms about the plan to close the post office in the square, to privatise it, and then to reopen a smaller post office with less services in a different location. Close to 2,000 people have signed a petition that was delivered into the GPO last week, where they informed the campaigners that, well, they intend to proceed. I've been doing a lot of work on this, talking to a lot of people. I haven't come across a single person with anything bad to say about the staff in the post office, who provide an outstanding service. It isn't just the kind of basic bread and butter of the post office, but it's a real community service for people. Tallaght isn't the only location which is on the chopping block of this privatisation agenda. Rathmines, Phibsborough, New Ross, Roscommon and Tipperary are in a similar situation. I can predict, because I'm a mind reader, what the Minister will say in response, but also, as well as being a mind reader, I have a letter from the Minister for the Environment, and he says that An Post has indicated that the change in business model of the 6 offices will not in any way change the range or extent of services offered. But that is just not accurate. That might be what An Post is telling the Minister, but it's not even really what An Post is telling me. So I got a similar commitment from An Post. So I wrote back to them to ask, can you confirm that the number of staff working at the new post office in Tallaght will not be reduced from the current number? And can you confirm that the number of physical counters will not be reduced? And what I got back was to say, we will almost certainly be moving, but staff and counters are normally pitched to the numbers coming in the doors. Post offices often have extra counters that are never used in practice, and they have no plan to do anything other than a top-notch facility, i.e. no guarantee that the same numbers of staff remain, no guarantee that the same number of counters remain. And so in reality what will happen is a reduction in the number of staff, a reduction in the number of counters, and we know that these contractor-led post offices often do not provide the same level of service. I mean, currently people are often directed to the post office in the square to get the full range of services, for example, in terms of getting prize bonds, things like that, because the privately operated ones can effectively opt out of that. So I just don't see how in any world, in the real world, having less staff, less counters means that a guarantee is being provided of the same service. The workers are being treated abysmally, and again I have correspondence with An Post about this. The workers are not being given the option to transfer over to the contractor operation. The workers are not being given the option of voluntary redundancy. They're given no option whatsoever. They're going to be transferred elsewhere within An Post in Dublin, probably going from a situation where they live in Tallaght, where they work in Tallaght, to a situation where they'll have an hour commute into town, an hour commute out of town every single day. And that isn't even the worst of it. Once the post office is no longer directly run by An Post, as is the case with the majority of post offices across the country, then there's no guarantee that it stays at all. Over the past 3 or 4 years, we've had about 200 post offices, all contractor-run post offices, closed down across the country. This isn't something that is just happening in rural areas, but it shouldn't be happening in rural areas. It's also happening, say, elsewhere in Dublin South West, in Temple Oak, in Rathfarnham. Post offices have closed, in one circumstance because the shop that it was in closed, in another circumstance because the postmaster died. No one has replaced, and then An Post says, nothing to do with us, this is a contractor-led operation. So this is a 2-stage process. Step 1, a smaller, less services, bad for the workers, and then step 2, the post office can go entirely. This plan should be withdrawn, and the government should put pressure on An Post to do so.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this really important issue, and I welcome the opportunity to outline the position on behalf of the Minister, Deputy Eamon Ryan, and the Minister of State, Deputy Chambers. Both the Minister and the Minister of State are very aware of the impact that decisions relating to changes in An Post operations have on communities and individuals in both rural and urban areas. An Post is a commercial state company with a mandate to act commercially, and as such, day-to-day operational matters, including decisions in relation to the size, the distribution and future of the network, are matters for the board and the management of the company, and not ones in which either the Minister or Minister of State have a statutory function. The Minister has responsibility for the postal sector, including the governance oversight of An Post, to ensure the company is compliant with the Code of Practice for the governance of state bodies and the governance functions included in the statutory framework underpinning An Post. In line with its ongoing transformation, as you've said, An Post has announced that it is converting 6 post offices from An Post operated to contractor operated, one of which is the Tallaght office. That post office will join the mainstream of national post offices in that more than 90% of the country's 900 post offices are operated by contractors. It should be noted that fewer than 40 post offices throughout the state are now run directly by An Post. And I have the same correspondence that you have, Deputy. They have indicated that the change in business model of the 6 offices will not in any way alter the range or extent of the service offered by An Post in those locations. I think they're the words that you read out. An Post has over the last number of years been transforming its business by delivering new products and new formats in the way it operates. This includes, among other things, diversifying and growing the financial service products it provides for individuals and small and medium enterprises, to include loans, credit cards, more foreign exchange products, local banking in association with the major banks, and a full range of state savings products. An Post is providing agency banking services for AIB and Bank of Ireland across its network of post offices. The government agreed that an amount of €10 million per annum will be provided by the Department of the Environment. So this is what the government is doing to support post offices over a 3-year fixed term to support the postmasters, with funding to be dispersed across the post office network. The funding is being paid monthly for each 12-month period. There has been over €12.2 million claimed by An Post to the end of March 2024 for the postmaster network. The programme for government recognises that a modernised post office network will provide a better range of financial services and e-commerce services for citizens and enterprise as part of our commitment to a sustainable nationwide post office network. The overall €30 million funding being provided to support a sustainable nationwide post office network is in line with this commitment. I'm answering this on behalf of the Minister, but if I could say under my own brief as Minister for Older People, we lost a post office in An Ryan, the Gaeltacht area of Waterford, last week. We did have somebody who was prepared to take it on, but unfortunately it just wasn't financially viable. It's many older people that use the post office every week. It's what they have always done, and losing a post office from your local community is very distressing. Money claimed locally is spent locally, and I do know maybe in 30 or 40 years' time that whole generation will have passed on and post offices won't be as important. But as Minister for Older People, I can understand how important post offices are to the local community, but I'm saying that on a personal level.
Thank you, Minister Deputy.
Thanks, Chair. Agree entirely. I mean, a very high proportion of those who are signing the petition who are getting involved in the campaign are older people. It is a kind of community focal point that many people on a weekly basis go to the post office, are getting their bits and pieces done, but also are meeting and chatting with people. And again, everyone speaks so highly of those workers who are now being put in a very, very difficult situation. As predicted, you said the sentence about An Post has indicated that nothing will change in terms of service model. And again, I just say to you, and I say to the Minister, hopefully he reads through the transcript, is that I have the email correspondence with An Post whereby they're clearly saying we're not committing to keep the same number of staff, we're not committing to keep the same number of counters. Just in what world does that amount to a guarantee that the same services are going to be provided to the community? I don't think it is. And I think in reality what is happening here is there is a long-term agenda to significantly reduce the number of branches that An Post has around the country. As long as they're directly An Post run, which 10% are, they kind of can't politically do it. It's very, very difficult for them to shut down a post office because there will be a community response based around the older people and others who use the post office, and they'll be forced back. So there's a 2-stage process where, one, they wash their hands of the post office and they say, don't worry, everything's going to be the same, it's going to be run by a contractor. And then secondly, either it's no longer financially viable, which is definitely not the case in terms of Tallaght. It must be one of the busiest post offices in the country, or the postmaster dies, or something happens, and then An Post says, because I've seen it in terms of Rathfarnham, and I've seen it in terms of the government, they say, oh, this has nothing to do with us. So this is about running down our national network of post office branches, and I think we should be opposing it, and the government should be opposing it, and I think that An Post should withdraw this proposal. And I'd say exactly the same points could be made in terms of Rathmines, Phibsborough, Euross, Tipperary, Roscommon. The same sort of campaigns, the same issues exist there, and I am appealing to An Post, even at this late stage, to withdraw from the plan.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Just a couple of points. So you will appreciate that the Minister cannot intervene in matters which we as an Oireachtas have given An Post a statutory responsibility to fulfil. An Post has an independent board with a clear mandate. But one point I will say, I am glad the fact that, okay, you're not happy that the post office is being converted, but I'm thankful that the post office is not being proposed to be closed. And I would encourage everyone, and I say this any time I get an opportunity to speak, and it's not only rural, as you said, it's urban as well. Post offices depend on the amount of transactions that go over the counter. A lot of people have moved to online transactions, so it is really important that people continue to support the post office. I know you said the Tallaght one is extremely busy, but that's not always the case, to continue to support. But Deputy, I will bring your concerns in person back to the Minister and his officials, the fact that, as you said, there was a petition signed with over 2,000 signatories, the majority of them older people that are used to the post office as it currently runs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.